Hello everyone, it's Nick here with MP Gunsmith and Firearms. It occurred to me that I haven't made a video in a while, so I'm going to do a fun one here. We're going to go through and run like a safety check on a 1911. Then we're going to do a function check. Then I'm going to field strip it, and then I'm going to show you how to completely disassemble it. So it should be a fun video to do. I haven't done one in a while. So with that being said, I'm going to go through the safety checks real quick. First thing, when it comes to working on any firearms, you got to make sure it's unloaded. There's no ammo around, no live ammunition around. I do have a magazine here, but it's full of dummy rounds. Okay. So with that being said, firearm, it's unloaded, no magazine, so it's safe to work on. We're going to go ahead and close the slide back up. You can see we got the hammer cocked. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is check the operation of the slide stop safety. Okay, slide stop safety is up and engaged. I'm going to engage the grip safety and pull the trigger, and this hammer should not move. Okay, like that. All right, next thing we're going to do is check the grip safety operation. So we're going to disengage the slide stop safety. All right, like so. Going to not engage the grip safety here, but still pull trigger, and that hammer should not fall. Okay, just like that. Okay, now we're going to verify the operation of everything and make sure the hammer does fall actually. So we're going to engage the grip safety, slide stop safety is down, and we are going to squeeze that trigger just like that. Okay, so that's a safety check. There's a drop safety in there, but I'm not going to deliberately drop this firearm. You could test it by hitting it with a nylon mallet, cocking the hammer, whacking it with a mallet, seeing if it goes off. So now I'm going to install this magazine here of dummy rounds, okay? We're going to make sure everything functions properly. Magazine is in. Okay, first thing we're going to do is rack the slide and get a dummy round into the chamber. Hammer's back, round is chambered. The slide is all the way forward. As you can see, it's locked in place. Everything is functioning properly. We're going to squeeze trigger and fire and eject the round. Squeeze trigger, fire, okay, eject the round. On this one, when I squeeze the trigger, I want to hold the trigger back as I rack the slide. And then I'll show you why I'm doing this. As I release the trigger, we're going to hear for an audible click. I'll bring the gun up here to where you can hear it. And what that is the sear and everything re-engaging. Okay, so I'm going to squeeze trigger, fire, hold the trigger back. Now let's listen, see if we can hear it as I release the trigger. Okay, I heard it. Hopefully you guys heard it. So on the last round in there, as it ejects, after I pull the trigger, the slide should be locked open. Okay, so one more time. Slide locks open. Okay, that's a function check on a 1911. Next step would be to go to the range and do some live fire testing, make sure everything works properly. So what we're going to do now is field strip this bad boy. It's a dummy round that I lost somewhere. I'll find it later. Okay, first thing I want to do, eject the magazine. Now, to field strip it, you could use your hands. You can use a little tool here to help compress the recoil spring when you go to take out the spring guide. So I like to use a little tool, makes my life easier. That being said, we'll get started. Magazine's out, firearms unloaded. Now this goes two ways. First, when you compress this spring, you want to slide the barrel bushing, turn the barrel bushing to my right, so you can get the spring and everything out, and then you're going to turn it back towards the left so you can get the barrel bushing out. Okay. Okay, just like that. See, I turn it to my right, so then I'm going to turn it back towards the left. And there's a little notch in there. Line up the notch, and you right out. Okay, and you slide the slide back. It's a slide stop notch, and there's this little half moon guy right there. That's where you want to line up this with. Okay, it's a slide release. You want to line up the top of the slide release of that little half moon right there. Okay, and then you can push the back of that slide release. There's a little button, little sticks out right there, lower. You can slide that out. Okay, so you can see I got my barrel bushing, I got my slide release, and I got the whole recoil spring, slide, barrel, everything comes off in one piece. Okay, and you want to take the barrel apart or the slide apart. Everything comes out like this. The barrel actually slides out through the front of the slide like that. Okay. Now, before I go any further with assembling the frame, I will show you something on the slide. What makes the 1911s really unique is there's no shoulder on the firing pin. Okay, it relies on the firing pin spring and the firing of the cartridge for that firing pin to go back. Let me find a small enough punch here. I'll show you. If I push on that, hopefully so you can see this. You'll be able to see that firing pin gauge all the way through if you just push it. There's no shoulder on it. Okay, that spring wasn't there, or that firing pin spring was broken or malfunctioning, somehow weak, you can have firing issues with that. So when you want to disassemble the slide, it's pretty simple. We're going to do it real quick. You just need a punch. Okay. Push that firing pin in. Slide down the firing pin stop. Now, this is spring loaded, so you got to be careful. Okay, firing pin stop, firing pin spring, right there. Okay, now when we go to reassemble that, it's pretty simple. You just put that in, and you slide your firing pin stop up into place, but except this is spring loaded, so you need to be careful when you do that. Last thing you want to do is launch a spring. Take out an eyeball. So we're going to move forward with disassembling the slide. Or not the slide, the frame. My bad. First thing I like to do is take grips off. You don't really need to take off the grip on the right hand side of the firearm. You will need to take the grip off on the left hand side of the firearm. There's a pin that is behind the side of the grip. Okay. So, make sure you get your good size, the right size screwdriver. Size bit. The only punch you may need to, or the only pin you may need to whack, so to say, is the one holding in the mainspring housing, because there's a detent in there and it kind of holds it in place. I'll show you on the pin what I'm talking about. You can't really see the detent ball, but I can show you on the pin how there's a divot where the ball sits, and it's just easier to just go pop it out. Okay, take that grip off. Okay, now I can have access to that pin when we get to it. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to remove the mainspring housing. Alright, it's easier when the hammer is not cocked. It takes tension off of it. So it's all about having the right size punch for this. Mine right here. I have my little hammer over here. So that was just a little quick tap. Just enough to get that pin started, and you should be able to push it all the way through. And if you look on that pin, you can see that detent right here in the middle. Okay, there's a detent ball inside at the bottom of that mainspring housing that sits in there, so it's just a lot easier to go and tap it right out of there. We can slide the mainspring housing out. I'm not going to disassemble this, but if you wanted to, there's a little pin here. You take your punch, push down the mainspring, push that pin out. You can pull the whole mainspring and everything out, but that again, it's spring pressure. You need to be careful. I can't stress that enough. You're not careful, you're going to launch that spring, you take your eye out, you know, just like the Christmas story. Shoot your eye out. So now we are going to go ahead and remove the slide stop safety, and there's a spring here, so we need to be careful. Just like that, launch that spring. Spring. See what happens when you're not careful? Slide stop safety. Okay. Now we're going to remove the grip safety. Our leaf springs here. Finger springs, leaf springs. Alright. Now we're going to pop out the hammer. Okay. All these pins are just going to push out now. Comes the hammer. Now when we go to remove the sear, okay, we can kind of see it inside there. There's two pieces there. You want to pay attention to the orientation, okay? So when you get to put it back together, you don't drive yourself nuts. I drive myself nuts anyway because it's small and it's hard to get my fingers in there. But just pay attention to when you do that. Again, it's just a little pin. Pin comes out like so, and I'll show you once I get this out. There we go. Now that's what I'm talking about, okay? Pay attention to the orientation, because this sear, this is two pieces, and that's how it has to go in. Okay, so now the last thing we're going to do, pull out, is the mag stop and the trigger, just so you have an understanding of how that works. You gotta get a smaller screwdriver bit here. The magazine stop, or the magazine release, I mean. Let's get a little screw here, okay? You actually got to hold in the mag release from the other side, press it in, and turn that screw, and it releases this pressure on there, and just like that you pull it out. And the final thing is the trigger. Okay, now this 1911 is disassembled except for the grip on the back side. It's your 1911 in a nutshell. Alright, it was 10 minutes. I had that apart. They're once you get to understand them, they're not intimidating. All right, they're fun to shoot. They're great to work on. This one I've polished the feed ramp. I'm gonna be getting ready to do a trigger job on it soon. So that's that. Now I'm gonna reassemble it. You're probably gonna see me cuss out this sear here, but not a problem. So go back together, reverse direction, start with your trigger. Put your trigger in place. Okay. Magazine release. And when you go release that screw, you gotta hold that. You gotta keep pressure on the back side of the mag release. and my finger's covering it so I can turn that screw. And you'll know, you'll feel it. That spring's just going to want to take back over as soon as you get it released. Okay, so that's that. And we take our sear right here and get it inserted. Just like that, see? Start. Okay. Drop our pin through there. May have to fool around with it a little bit to get everything lined up so you can drop the pin through. There we go. Well, you can see everything is lined back up and the pin is through. So then the first thing you want to do is get the trigger into place. Drop that pin in. This is where it gets, you gotta do lots of things at once. But it's not that hard. Okay, we're gonna get our finger springs in place. We're gonna start the mainspring up into place, okay? Start it. Because you have to make sure that lines up, but you also have to get your grip safety in there at the same time. Okay? You gotta hold all those in place, make sure fighting me right there. My leaf spring came out. Okay. Interesting. There we go. Let's try that again. I'm going to hold my leaf spring in, get my, or not my leaf spring, my mainspring housing in, and get the pin started. It's going to make a wire out of me. Pin started. I'm just going to gently tap that through, but keep my pressure down on it so I'm not forcing it. I just have to get it past that detent ball. And mainspring housing is in. Now we're going to put the slide stop safety back into place. First, we need our slide stop spring assembly here. It's actually an assembly, there's a couple pieces there. And we insert that. Okay. Don't drop your pieces. It doesn't work out so well that way. I find it easier to have a small screwdriver to hold that spring assembly back while you insert the slide stop safety. Okay, so you can manipulate it. Now is when you want to check the function of that hammer. Make sure you have it the sear and everything installed properly. You should hear it clicking. Okay, the hammer should be engaging on the sear. So this one is installed. We don't have to worry about anything. If your hammer wasn't engaging, like if you just had a floppy hammer, it wasn't locking, you'd have to take it apart and check your finger springs there. Make sure you have them in the proper position, because that will cause you a lot of issues. So this part is good. We're gonna just stick the grip back on. And then I'll reassemble the slide. Frames back together. Okay, everything functions the way it should. Now I will reassemble the slide real quick. Again, when we go to insert the firing pin and the firing pin stop, it's spring loaded, people. Be careful. I find it easier if you start. Make sure you aim it away from yourself. I gotta aim towards my phone too. So if it really goes disastrous, you're gonna have a first-hand view of it. That's what I'm talking about, right there. Okay. You gotta be able to hold that pin in carefully while launching it. See, I had my thumb here because it slipped a couple times, and you know about it. Okay, so reassemble the slide. You want to make sure this is down. Slide your barrel in. Get your recoil spring in place. Get your spring guide on the end. This is always, I find it easier. You got the hammer back, okay? So you're not fighting your main spring. Get the slide on. Nice and simple, nice and easy. Where is my hole? Line up the hole in your barrel. Get your slide release in place. Continue to slide back until that half moon is lined up with the top of the slide stop again. And you can insert the slide stop all the way. Okay. Then I like to put the slide forward and engage the slide stop safety when I go to put my bushing back in. So I'm not fighting. So my slide isn't moving backwards on me. Push my slide stop in on the left, then rotate it to the right. Okay, past spring so you can get. Now this part you can do with your thumb. You should be able to do it with your thumb. Like so. Okay, so that firearm now is ready to go. Everything functions as it should. Okay. That is a safety check, function check, field strip, disassembly on a 1911 in half hour, 30 minutes or so. So once you get used to taking them apart and knowing what you're looking at and how they function and operate, 1911s are actually a pretty simple firearm to work on. You can see it didn't take much, just a few punches, just really to hold things in place, except to take out that mainspring housing. I mean, if you really want to, you can pop it. It's not hard to do. Small screwdriver for the magazine release, and that's really about it. So hope you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe to my channel, and I'll try to keep more content coming. Just been getting backed up here in the shop, so I had to catch up on all that. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy.